Stop asking realtors how the real estate market is doing and instead ask these 4 more important questions. What's up, y'all? This is Cabby, one half of the Chris and Cab team right here in Houston, Texas. And undoubtedly, the most common question we get is, how's the market? And while this is an important question and we understand why people ask this, I personally feel like people in general place too much emphasis on how the market is doing. And the reason is because you can't control the market. And to me, there's very little sense in worrying or placing so much emphasis on something that's out of your control. So instead, I think there are 4 other questions that are more important that people need to be asking themselves. But before I get into that, let me give you some examples of why I think focusing on the market too much or exclusively is a mistake. So I remember back in 2019, towards the end of the year, Christina and I listen to a lot of podcasts and we do stay tuned in to real estate news, industry news, and things of that nature. And I remember all of the news sources, all of the podcasts were basically saying that the upcoming year, 2020, was going to be another year of steady growth for real estate. All of the indicators was just that 2020 was going to be a normal year. It was going to be an up year, but it's just going to be a year of steady, improved growth. And this was what everybody was saying at the end of 2019. And then what happened? In March of 2020, COVID hit. We had government shutdowns and we had to stay at home. All these things were going on. And I remember all of the talk throughout the industry was that we're in a shift, that we need to get ready for a recession, that we need to get ready for another housing crash. And I honestly kind of felt that, I assumed that was going to happen as well. But really what ended up happening? Well, over the course of a few months, a lot of people, yeah, sure, unemployment did spike, but also a lot of people, especially corporate workers, they were able to work from home. And then we got stimulus packages. And the next thing you know, with so many people working from home, they're seeing that they need bigger space. They need a home office, it's just kind of cramped with them, with the kids there and them trying to work. So next thing you know, we are in a housing boom. And things were crazy busy from later half of 2020 and especially in 2021 through most of 2022. So instead of the crash that we were all predicting and expecting, the exact opposite happened, right? We were in a boom. Those are just 2 examples where the experts are often wrong. And the whole point is nobody can predict the future. So the whole point is, yes, it's good to understand what's going on in the market so that you can plan for different contingencies and scenarios. But I truly believe that what's going on in the market should not be the driving factors behind your decision making, because you cannot control the market. Right? So with that said, what are the questions you need to be asking yourself instead? Well, number 1, what is your budget and expenses? Number 2, what are your overall goals? Number 3, how does real estate fit within those goals, if at all? And number 4, how do you best achieve those goals given number 1, right? Given your budget and expenses. See, I think people should really be focusing on their budget and expenses more, definitely more so than the market, because that is something that they control. Also, people need to understand their goals, because your decision making should align with, your long-term big picture goals. Like, for example, people always ask us, is it a good time to buy? And, it depends. Let's say you're a young professional, been working your good corporate job for a few years and you've got a lot of savings, right? But let's say you want to open a business, and that you can use your savings to open your business and live off that cash for a while your business gets off the ground, right? Is buying a home necessarily the best option for you at that point in time? Probably not. On the other hand, let's say as a young working corporate professional, you have no interest in starting your own business, that you do have a lot of savings, and that you do believe in home ownership, that you do want a place to call your own, that you don't plan on moving in the next 3-4 years, and you're looking to put down some roots, and then yeah, definitely home ownership and buying a home definitely makes sense for you in that scenario. Going back to the point of understanding your budget and expenses, I think if you walked out onto the street and asked the average individual know what their budget is, like how much money they have left over after all of their expenses. And if you ask them specifically, do you know what your monthly expenses are? Do you know specifically to the dollar amount what you're paying for each month? Including myself, I wouldn't know that, right? But I do have a monthly budget written down, and I think a lot of people don't even have that. But it's such an important part of buying a home, knowing what your expenses are, that I think people overlook. So again, the 4 questions I really believe you need to be asking are, number 1, what is my budget and what are my monthly expenses? Number 2, what are my overall goals? Number 3, how does real estate fit into those goals, if at all? And number 4, how can I best achieve my goals given number 1, which is my budget and my expenses? So let me wrap up this video by giving you another example from our personal lives. So Christina and I last year bought our first home, and we started shopping around the beginning of 2022. And at this time, interest rates had started creeping up from historical lows. For so many years, from the COVID times, interest rates were like at 4.5 and 4.75, and then they crossed the 5% threshold, and people were freaking out, and they thought interest rates were getting so high. And I remember there's people that decided to wait and stay on the sidelines to see what interest rates would do, right? But now, fast forward to today, where the average interest rate is at 7, that buyer back in the beginning of 22 that was waiting for interest rates to come down lower than 4.5, like they've missed out on all that time that they could have been building equity, and now their interest rates are even higher. Again, no one knew for sure what was going to happen with interest rates, but at the time we just adjusted our budget and what we were looking for in a home to make sure that we could afford and be comfortable given what current interest rates were. The other thing we took into consideration was that we had just got done with a real estate boom, like 2020, 2021, those were really good years for our business. And the thing that I took into consideration was that I couldn't control, or we couldn't control what the market was going to do. We couldn't control how long the market was going to be good and predict when it might correct, if at all. And so we set our budget kind of building in, okay, what happens when the real estate market isn't as good as it was in 2021. Fast forward to this year, 2023 has been a down year in real estate in terms of the number of transactions, right? The number of sales has been down by a lot, and most of this has to do with interest rates and just people not wanting to buy during this time because of what's going on with interest rates. Nevertheless, because we kind of factored in possible corrections within our budget, luckily for us, we've been comfortable in being able to meet our expenses and obligations. Despite that, we're not necessarily doing the number of transactions we did in 2021. So the point is, like, even with us being in the industry, we didn't try to time the market. What we did is just like, we understood what was going on. We built in some contingencies. So we moved forward purchasing a home at that time because, for us, we had enough money saved up, and buying real estate, purchasing a home fit into our big picture goals. We wanted to be homeowners. We wanted to start building equity. And so that's why we decided to move forward at that time. So again, control what you can control your budget, understand your expenses, your goals, and how real estate might fit into that. And if y'all have any other questions about real estate, and specifically real estate here in Houston, feel free to hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to help. You can email us at hello@chrisandcab.com. Also follow us on Instagram @ChristenCab. We're super active on there. Shoot us a DM. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next video.